Have you ever wondered how just 3 days could change your entire reality? How a simple shift in the way you speak to yourself could open the floodgates to everything you've ever desired? It sounds almost too good to be true, doesn't it? But trust me, it's not. In fact, this is one of the most powerful secrets Neville Goddard ever taught, and I'm going to break it down for you in a way that you can start using it immediately to transform your life. Hello, my beautiful superheroes. I'm Scarlett Grace, I'm a manifestation coach, and I'm here to help you manifest all of your heart's desires. If you're ready to master your inner world and create the life you've always dreamed of, you're in the right place. Be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you don't miss any of my videos. Now, back to Neville's 3-day technique. This method is simple, but it is very profound. It centers around one of the most important principles of manifestation, your inner conversations. These are the dialogues you have with yourself throughout the day, and they hold the key to creating your reality. Your inner conversation is the ongoing dialogue you have with yourself or with other people in your own mind. If you don't understand what I mean by inner conversations with other people, let me give you a very common example that many people experience. Have you ever had issues with another person, perhaps your husband or your wife or a coworker or a relative, and you kept trying to work out what you're going to say to them the next time you meet them, or what you should have said during your last talk, essentially having an argument with them in your mind over and over? This is a classic case of a negative inner conversation. Neville Goddard teaches that this internal dialogue is the key to manifesting the reality you want. The conversations you have in your mind throughout the day, whether consciously or subconsciously, determine your life experiences. Now, you might be wondering, but how can something as simple as changing my inner dialogue change my reality? It sounds almost too simple, right? But the truth is, your inner conversations create the blueprint for your reality. As Neville says, you create your own reality through the power of your imagination and your assumption. When you speak to yourself from the perspective of your wish fulfilled, you are setting the wheels of manifestation in motion. It's like planting a seed that will eventually grow into your desired outcome. But here's the catch. This has to be done consistently and with belief. And that's where the 3-day technique comes in. The amazing thing about this technique is how simple and how straightforward it is. For 3 days, you commit to a mental conversation as if your desire has already been fulfilled. You don't just imagine it. You speak to yourself about it as though it's already happened, as though it's a fact. You assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled and you speak from that state in your mind, both to yourself and to other people you're having conversations with in your mind when it's relevant. The idea is that if you persist for just 3 days, you will impress your subconscious mind and set the law of assumption into motion. But how does this really work in practical terms? Let's break it down. The reason the 3-day method is so effective is that it helps you shift your internal state. Think of it as rewiring your brain. When you speak to yourself from the perspective of your wish fulfilled, you're training your subconscious mind to accept that new reality as your truth. Our subconscious mind can't tell the difference between what's real and what's imagined. It believes whatever we tell it, whatever we impress upon it. So when you consistently speak to yourself as if you already have what you want, you change your self-concept and your external world begins to reflect that change. By repeating this process for just 3 days, you begin to override any negative or contradictory thoughts that you might have, and you affirm the new reality you want to experience. Over time, that mental resistance that you used to have fades, and the assumptions you've made begin to materialize in your 3D reality. Let me share with you an example of this method in action to show you how this actually works. But before we dive into an example of how this technique can transform your reality, I want to take a moment to let you know that if you're feeling like you need more personalized help with manifesting your desires, I offer one-on-one coaching as well as recorded coaching. This coaching is perfect for you if you want to go deeper, get tailored guidance, and really accelerate this manifestation journey. Together, we'll work on aligning your inner world with your desires so that you can manifest faster and more effectively. If you're interested, be sure to check the link in the description for more information. Now let's look at a powerful example of how this technique works in real life. In his book, The Power of Awareness, Neville Goddard shares a very interesting story. One day, a costume designer came to Neville with a problem. She was working with a prominent theatrical producer who she felt was constantly rejecting her best designs, criticizing her work unfairly, and being rude to her. She believed that he was just a difficult person and that his treatment of her was completely out of her control. Neville listened to her story and gently explained that her perception of the producer was the root of the issue. If she was seeing him as rude and unfair, it was likely that she was carrying these thoughts and assumptions in her mind. In other words, her thoughts about him were creating her reality. Neville suggested that she begin to change her inner conversations. Instead of mentally arguing with the producer and thinking about how difficult and how unfair he is, she needed to imagine conversations where he was praising her work and congratulating her on her talent. He recommended that before going to sleep at night, on her way to work and throughout the day, she imagines that the producer was complimenting her on her designs and saying things like, "Congratulations on your amazing work. You did such a great job." She agreed to give it a try, so for 3 days, she persisted in imagining these positive conversations, and shockingly, by the end of the 3rd day, the producer's attitude completely shifted. He began treating her with respect, acknowledging her talent, and offering her new opportunities. His behavior mirrored her new assumption of him. What Neville had taught her was true. By changing her inner conversation, she had literally transformed her external circumstances. And here's another amazing example Neville shared that shows the power of inner conversations. This one comes from a friend of Neville's, Freedom Barry, who was passionate about music. For Christmas, he told all his friends that he wanted the Tristan and Isolde album as interpreted by Flagstad. He wanted it more than anything. But when Christmas came, he received plenty of other records, but not the one he really wanted. His friends told him that searched everywhere and couldn't find it. After Christmas, he didn't give up. Instead, he decided to use the method Neville teaches. He had a quiet moment and started having an inner conversation with a salesman. In this conversation, the salesman confirmed that they did have the album. Freedom felt it so deeply in his mind, he really believed it was true. So he physically went to the store to ask for it. But when he got there, the salesman told him they didn't have the record. Freedom, though, still convinced from his inner conversation, replied, "That's not what I heard you say." Because that was not what he heard the salesman say in his inner conversations. He refused to accept the answer that didn't match what he had already imagined in his mind. As he was about to leave, Freedom noticed a record sleeve on a shelf. It was labeled Tristan and Isolde, but it looked like an empty sleeve, just an advertisement. He pointed it out to the salesman and said, "You shouldn't be advertising something you don't actually have." The salesman agreed, but as he reached for the sleeve to remove it, he discovered it wasn't empty at all. It was the full album of Tristan and Isolde, the very record Freedom had wanted. It had been there for months, and dozens of people had asked for it, but never realized it was there. But because Freedom persisted with his inner conversation, he refused to accept no, and his assumption became his reality. This story is another perfect example of how inner conversations can shift your reality in ways you may never expect. So now that you've seen how this works in practice, let's go over how you can apply it in your own life. Here's what you need to do to get amazing results. First of all, you need to have clarity. Before you begin, I want you to get crystal clear on what you want to manifest. Whether it's a new job, a specific person, financial abundance, a loving relationship, I want you to define your desire. If you don't know what you want, you cannot manifest it. You will get mixed results. But if you already know exactly what you want, that is incredibly powerful. Now, when you know what you want, the second step is to use mental conversations. I want you to create inner dialogues that assume your wish is already yours, it is already fulfilled. Speak to yourself as though you've already achieved your goal. For example, if you're manifesting a new job, imagine conversations where friends are congratulating you on getting hired for the job you've always wanted. Or if you want your specific person to propose to you, imagine conversations where your friends are admiring your engagement ring, or conversations where you're discussing the flavor of cake you want at your wedding. Now, let me answer this right here because I know many of you will ask this question. Those conversations do not have to be identical every time. You don't have to script them and memorize them. They can be random conversations that you create on the spot as long as they're coming from the wish fulfilled, okay? But they don't have to be identical, like when we are creating a visualization and we play the exact same scene over and over and over. But here's the important part, and this is actually step 3. You need to stay consistent. You must persist for 3 days. During this time, your job is to keep your inner conversations aligned with your desire. Don't let any doubt or contradiction slip in. Keep your inner conversations from the perspective of the end result, of the wish fulfilled. And I don't want you to play these conversations mindlessly as if they are a chore. I want you to feel the emotions associated with your wish fulfilled. Emotion is the fuel that powers manifestation. So how do these conversations make you feel? How does hearing your boss praising you make you feel? How does being congratulated for the great job you just landed make you feel? How does discussing your specific person's romantic proposal make you feel? Feel it, enjoy it, revel in it. But keep in mind that in the beginning, you may catch yourself slipping back into negative inner conversations again out of habit. Neville actually talked extensively about this phenomenon. Here's what he has to say in his own words. He says, "You will notice, because we are all creatures of habit, you have a habit to overcome. In the course of a day, you'll find yourself thinking negatively 1,000 times, and you will carry on arguments with 1,000 people from premises of unfulfilled desire. Don't try to justify it. The average mind, not knowing this and knowing this story, will say, well, let me finish it first. Let me finish my negative conversation first, and then I'll do it. I want to tell him off." So we bring before our mind's eye something and we carry on this negative conversation. We become aware of what we're doing, but it's so pleasant from a negative point of view, we want to finish it. So we carry on the negative state and finish it before we'll turn to the positive. Don't waste your precious time. The minute you become aware that you're carrying on these negative conversations, stop it and come back without any conversation with self, no condemnation of self, no justification of what you did. Don't do it and come back to the new man. So what Neville tells us here is that it is natural for our mind to slip into negative inner conversations out of habit, and that by itself it isn't a big deal. But you need to be very careful about one thing. When you catch yourself having a negative inner conversation, you need to stop it and replace it with a positive inner dialogue the moment you catch yourself having the negative conversation. He says that your mind will really want to finish the negative conversation first. It wants to say your piece, tell that person off, really give them a piece of your mind. It feels very satisfying, doesn't it, when you're arguing with somebody in your mind and you have the upper hand and you tell them all the things you've been thinking about them and how awful they are and useless they are and stupid they are. And stop. Do not let the negative conversation play out. No matter how satisfying it is, by letting the conversation play out and finish, you're imprinting it in your subconscious mind and you're making it manifest. Stop it right away the moment you catch yourself in a negative inner conversation and immediately reverse it. Don't go into judgment like, oh my God, why am I having those arguments in my mind again? Don't judge yourself for it. Don't make it into a big deal. Just stop yourself and go into a positive mental conversation instead. Your brain will want to resist this at first. It still has the momentum going for the negative dialogue. Ignore it. Create a positive inner conversation instead and insist on having that one in your mind. This is especially important if you're manifesting a specific person, especially if you have some history with them, like an ex or someone you've had disagreements with in the past, someone who hurt you in the past or rejected you in the past. It is so easy to replay old arguments or the hurtful things they said to you, right? But every time you do that, you're engaging in a negative inner conversation. You're essentially bringing that past energy into your present, which only reinforces the idea that the relationship is stuck or unhealthy or over or it will never happen. Instead, you want to replace those negative conversations with thoughts of them acting in the way you want. Imagine that they're saying loving things to you, things that express love, respect, kindness, desire, whatever it is that you desire from them. Imagine them saying the things that you want to hear and creating a connection based on mutual love and understanding. Change the conversation in your mind and you will see the relationship shift in the physical world too. If you persist, it will manifest in your external 3D reality and it will change your life. Now I want you to use positive inner conversations every day. Start your day by having an inner conversation from the wish fulfilled. Have a quick inner conversation on your way to work. Practice inner conversations during your lunch break or as you fall asleep at night. Personally, I love having inner conversations when I'm doing things around the house, like doing the dishes or folding laundry. Inner conversations won't just manifest your desires, they will also put you in an incredibly good mood. I challenge you to try this technique for 3 days and let me know what changes you start to notice. You may be surprised at just how quickly things begin to shift. Remember, the power of this technique lies in its simplicity and consistency. By committing to 3 days of focused inner conversation, you set in motion forces that will reshape your reality in ways that you can't even imagine right now. So are you ready to transform your life in just 3 days? Let me know in the comments what you're planning to manifest using this technique. But if you're one of the rare people who actually don't have inner conversations, or if you're simply looking for a different way to manifest, especially when it comes to difficult people or people who aren't giving you what you want and are standing in your way, then you need to watch the video that's on your screen right now. So go watch that and I'll see you in the next video.